What's going on, everybody? It is your man Cleveland Terry, and today we are going to finally review, at least a follow-up review, of my first look video when I was up in Rhode Island testing out the Rane 4. It's been about a month now. How do I feel about it? Let's talk about it. All right, guys, if you are new to my channel, this is what we do. We talk about all things DJ related, gear reviews, business tutorials, tips and tricks, and then our DJ Tech Thursday every single week, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if that sounds good to you, make sure you hit that like button and obviously hit the subscribe button so you know the next time I post or am live. All right, guys, let's talk about this guy right here. Now, I'm gonna say a couple of things right off the bat. As far as Rane's controllers are concerned, and they have not produced a lot. I mean, when we're all said and done, they've really only produced the one controller, which was the Rane 1. It is a noticeably different controller in terms of the fact that there are no moving jogs on here. I know this is the biggest issue with a lot of people looking at this controller saying, well, if there's no moving jogs, then there's no deal. But I'm gonna tell you, again, which I told you in my first initial review, this is a very, very good board. As a matter of fact, it fixes a lot of the issues that I had with the Rane 1. Most of them are gone. So right there, I'm gonna say that for most people, especially if you aren't into the moving jogs, this is going to be one of the controllers that you wanna take a serious look at. We're not gonna talk about all the details because I know I broke those down in my previous video, but I do wanna talk about some things that as I've been using it, I've grown to love. As I've been using it, some things maybe irritate me, but overall, it's a great board. First off, let's talk about the crossfader here, because this crossfader on the Rane 1 was kind of a point of contention. There was a little bit of a gap, a noticeable gap, when you were scratching with the crossfader on the Rane 1. Does it make or break your ability to DJ with the Rane 1? Absolutely not. Not the end of the world. If you're a good scratcher, you're gonna scratch on anything, so I'm not trying to say that you couldn't get it done, but this particular crossfader, still a Mac 4, still the XF, for whatever reason, however they ran the audio through the board, if they disconnected, whatever they did, it is a much better crossfader. This feels like the crossfader that I kind of expected. If you were using like the Rane 70 or the Rane 72, this feels more in line with those mixers than the Rane 1 ever did. Now, of course, we still have the standard up faders. They're fine. They're better than the Rane 1 faders, 100%, but they don't really feel absolutely smooth. They're good enough. There is a crossfader contour, but there is no crossfader adjust, so you can't actually adjust the weight of the fader. It feels good, but for some people, it's gonna feel a little bit light. And that's probably one of my biggest issues with the board. There were a couple of things that I think they should have added that they didn't, and I can still get the job done, but it would have been nice if they did. The crossfader adjust would have definitely been something that I would have preferred, and then also the jogs. Having attention on the jogs that allows me to set the weight, so if it feels light or heavy, I can adjust that. For me, the jogs do feel light, which means they're easy to use and they feel good in the hands, but I would have liked mine to be a little more weighty, feel a little bit more like, you know, turntables or Rane 1. Those would have helped me out tremendously. Not the end of the world, but it is a thing. Let's move down into the pads, and I'm jumping around a little bit because this is just me kind of brainstorming about the things that I really, really love. Pads are better now. They feel good. They have the displays in here, a lot like the Rane 72. The inputs are here. You wouldn't think that this would be a big deal. You really wouldn't, but having the ability to see certain things is really important. For instance, in the stems, you got your vocal, your melody, your bass, your drums, and then you have your stem effects at the bottom. Easy to see, easy to know what you're doing. Yeah, they're small, but they are crisp and clean. Like this song. This song is No Diggity by Blackstreet. And there's a couple of parts in the song where you want to know where you're going. One of them is like the hey-ya. The hey-ya is a very important part. Now, I know exactly where the hey-ya is without having to look at my screen. So a lot of the things that are on here prevents you or stops you from having to use your screen so much. I do really appreciate that. The buttons are good. If you remember in my Rane 1 video, I did talk about using the buttons in sunlight, in daylight, and how they looked. And The buttons on the Rane one were exceptionally washed out. They were virtually useless. However, it does seem that they have put a little bit more wattage in these pads, because as I used it on it was a cloudy day, but even then the buttons were noticeably better and easier to see in daylight. Now, the one thing I will say, I don't know why they haven't done it yet, because you do have these OLED displays everywhere. There's still no daylight mode. I think if they just added a daylight mode in here, it would help. Now again, remember, the daylight mode already exists. When this thing goes to sleep, the screens turn white with black lettering. As far as the pads are concerned, they're good, they feel good, the buttons are reactive, everything is exactly the way you'd expect from a controller at this price point. In the menu, you do have some options here, and one of the options is the sensor button. Now, if you notice, there is a sensor button located right up here and right up here. If you travel over into the mode, you can actually change this mode, and let's just click on it. Right now it's at the normal, but you can turn the sensor into silent Q. So that's great, except I love the fact that there's silent Q on here. I really, really do. I don't love where it's located. As a working mobile DJ, I'm using the sensor button all the time. So I would have preferred it to be on a different button versus the sensor button that I'm gonna use, because now I have to go to, you know, my keypad and then hit the sensor, or MIDI map that one somewhere else. So it's a good option, but it's not good if I have to replace my sensor button, and now I gotta find a place for my sensor button. So I know you can map the silent Q anywhere you want now. I'll find a place for it, but good in theory, very good in theory. Let's move to the modes and then go. So we have our crossfader, and as we showed, you can affect the cut in left, the cut in right, and then restore the default. We'll get out of this. And then your microphone, you do have an echo feedback. You have your talk over level, your talk over hold. You can turn off whether the microphone is going to the booth. You can turn off whether the mic is going to the headphones. By the way, these are all great things, okay? As a working DJ, if you do have an MC and they're talking all over you and talking all over your mixes, it gets in the way. So if I can turn them off in my headphone and in the booth, amazing. And you can turn off the mic heading to your computer. So if you were DJing on Twitch or something like that, or Mixcloud, and you wanna record your mix, but you don't wanna record you talking in the microphone all the time, you can turn it off. Great stuff, great stuff. Obviously, you still have the ability to work the onboard effects. Again, one of those things that the Rane one should have had is on here. So the onboard effects are here. They are excellent. They sound great. Some of the things that are on here are very, very cool. I do love like the echo out. I love the scale down here. Some of them, I feel like they do too much. So I wouldn't personally use them, but they still sound good. Along with those, if you move on up, you do have your channel effects with 4 different effects. Very, very cool. You have your filter roll, your noise, and your flanger. I'm a big fan of them. Moving over, you do have your sampler level, which is great. You can adjust your sampler right there. See, it's the little things. The Rane one, no sampler knob. They had to jerry-rig a knob to make it work. They're just like, let's just put the knob on here. People want it, put the knob on. Now you got the knob. And then you can, which is a very, very cool feature. I do really love this. As you can see, there's a button right here that says assign to channel 4. So you can take your sampler. So you have multiple ways to EQ your sampler now. That's impressive. Very, very impressive. We have your microphones. All of them have 2-band EQs, your level, your high, your low. The channel 1 microphone has its own dedicated echo knob. Then on the front panel, you do have your secondary mic with, again, high and low, and then your level. A lot of stuff here. Also on the front panel, you have your headphone jack. Again, it's the one thing I wish they would change. I don't love the fact that my Q mix knob is on the front. I'm always touching it. I would have really loved had it been on the top plate. It works well. You got your split Q, your on and off, and then your 1/4 inch and mini jack for your headphones. It does what it's supposed to do. It's just on the front. I would have preferred it on the top. The last thing I'm gonna talk about is something that, you know, we've been talking about since Stems came out. Now, if you recall, when Stems came out, this was the board that they announced it with. And it was made for this board, and you can tell that they put a lot of thought into it because they're doing some things that, you know, nobody's doing right now. And that is being able to actually separate out your audio. They are allowing you to split out the audio between the channels. So when this is on, it's on the main channel 1. All right. So as you can see here, it's on channel 1. If I hit stem split, it splits out the vocals on this channel and then the audio for the instrumental on this channel. So if I now, because of that, you can EQ just the vocals or EQ the actual main instruments, or you can click on the filter and you can affect the filter. Neighborhood on the scene, neighborhood on the strip, neighborhood be the name, neighborhood no crib, neighborhood that's me, neighborhood that's thick, neighborhood do the things. Okay, thought I never make it like no way. Obviously, your effects still work on here. Now, in case you didn't realize, it's giving you some options here that you didn't have before. For instance, with our stem effects, you could apply like an echo out and then just have the instrumental. But now you can kind of figure out what stem effects you want to use just on your own. You can't ignore it. I'm transforming now these cars. Whoa, I hit record. Just out touring down in Charlotte like I play for him and never born. Now you champagne Perrier. Finish friends on my face. Looking like I'm gonna please don't cut me. Deep. Now, the one thing that is a little bit of a struggle for me personally is the fact that if I'm using the stem split, right? Both sides. If I go and load a track in, like this track, you have to remember that you still have the instrumental on this track. So remember that when you do the stem split, before you load in the next track, click the stem back on so you lock it in. That way, when you do load a new song in, it's going to load the song without keeping the other one. That was messing with me when I first started because since you're only looking at 2 decks and I didn't have the 4 deck on my screen, I couldn't see what was going on. I just knew that the song was still playing. I'm like, what is happening here? As far as the stem splits are concerned, it's great. You have so many ways to activate stems. You got the stem split right here. You have your standard stem pads right here. You have your dedicated stem button, which is actually a cool feature. So one of the things I like is, for instance, if I've been messing around with bass lines and removing things out, I can hit the instrumental and it'll just load the instrumental part, or hit the acapella and it brings them back in. So it's like a get out of jail free button there if you kind of find yourself in a situation where maybe you're over here rocking pads and you can't get to the stems, you can just hit that button real quick and get out of it. So it does what it's supposed to do, and it does it very, very well. I am very much a fan of this board. So if you were coming from a Rane 1 and you wanted that dedicated mixer section, then this is definitely the one to get. At $16.99, it's a good price. It's a good price for the board. The board does a lot. I didn't mention the one thing, it's light. This is an incredibly light board. It doesn't look like it's a light board, but it really, really is. It feels good. It's got the feet, so for a lot of people that run chords underneath or they want to put something like, for instance, I have a keyboard right now underneath here. Just because I got the space. So I can run my chords through here. I can run them from the back to the front, and then keep them nice and clean, the feet are a good thing. Oh, perfect example. Look, we are now in sleep mode, and look, everything's white on black. It checks a lot of boxes, a lot of boxes. The only box it doesn't check is, for some people, going to be the biggest box on the planet, and that's the moving jogs. I don't have an answer for you. This was a decision. Obviously, as you can see on this board, they're going after some pioneer stuff, you know, and if you're looking at like the 1000, this is a perfect competitor for the 1000. And I think it competes really, really well, especially when you add the stems features on. There's really nothing out there that's doing that. So this is a great board. No issues with it whatsoever. Of course, I say this with the understanding that I happen to be a moving jog guy. So it's incredibly difficult for me to get away from my moving jogs controller because I do prefer the moving jog feel. Some of you are going to feel that way. I get it. And for you, there are many, many options. Well, there's a couple of options. For people that weren't ever into moving jogs, you know, they just wanted like, you know, kind of CDJ style platters that were bigger. This is the controller for you. This controller is giving you everything you need and then some. I do love how much thought they put into the effects. I love how much thought they put into the stems and actually creating something that is stem worthy that you could actually use. And I love the fact that there is a dedicated effects board in here. And they're good effects. They didn't half-ass the effects. I will say that. The effects are, all of them, even the new ones that I don't prefer, they still sound amazing. And the scale down, obviously, sounds a little like the duck down. That's on the Rev 7, but equally good. And the fact that you can do effects and the channel effects at the same time, and stems, the options are limitless in what you can do. I think Rane did a really good job on this board. Besides the fact that there's no moving jogs. But what this tells me is there's a future. And if they can make a board like this, I still don't think they're going to come out with the 4-channel, you know, moving jogs system. I think it's going to be too big and too heavy. So I don't think they're going to do that. But if they can incorporate this into a Rane 1 Mark II or a Rane 2, whatever they're going to call it, and have all this stuff with just the moving platters, I think you're going to knock it out of the park. All right, guys. So if you found this tier useful, hit that like button. If you found it really useful, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow me on the Instagrams and the Twitters. Get on my Discord because that's where we're talking about all things Cleveland Terry. Of course, my DJ Tech Thursday show every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Guys, girls, always a pleasure. If I don't talk to you later, we'll talk soon. Peace.